Here we, here we are. Good morning, and I'm trying to fix out my screen. How are you? I hope you're well. Welcome to Morning Cafe. My name is Linda Alela. It is always good to have you every other morning, and importantly, to have you join me. And of course, I get to see your feedback, and tremendous feedback for that matter. And for that day, or for that note, I take this special day to say thank you. And once again, welcome you to be part and parcel of the conversation. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela. TV47KA. This is Morning Cafe once again. We take a look at what is happening in the world of news. We have candid discussions on different matters that matter to you. Today we'll be focusing on what is happening in Mulembe Nation within the Ford Kenya party, the party wrangles that cut across most of the parties in the country. And then we ask, was multipartyism an undoing or what? Then what does it mean in terms of growing democracy, or so to speak? What happens within these particular parties that really should be addressed for us to get healthy parties that are culminating, so that when we get to elect them to power, we indeed are certain that they're going to do us justice. Of course, that's what we'll be taking a look at. And importantly, we acknowledge that so much is growing in the construction world, and we also need to delve deep into understanding just what do you need to know, the basics of stepping in to the construction industry, because most of the people are getting into this world. Sometimes you do great and grievous mistakes that probably, if you asked or if we taught you before you got into it, would have saved yourself that kind of loss. So, karibu sana as we ponder into all this and much more right here on Morning Cafe. It is always good to have you joining us. We have so much in store for you. We take a look at what is happening in the world of news. We have the newspaper set for you, and we'll be looking at the basics. The People Daily, as always, the Standard newspaper, the Daily Nation are the key newspaper stories that we keep holding. As they keep loading, I think it is only fair that we take you through what you expect on the world of traffic. Some bit of, here and there on matters traffic. Just a brief of it before we get later on to look deeply into it. I can tell that the morning is an ease across different parts of the city. If you can be able to see this actually right from just that aspect of what is on the screen from Westlands where I am, to this other side, the only place that could be alarming is when you take this particular road. This is Waiyaki Way. Some bit of traffic somewhere in between the Muguga Green Estate and this side of Surrey City, but then it tells you that it is not badly off this morning. Waiyaki Way going all the way as you are headed to town and away from town. It is evidently not so bad. So I am just trying to take a sneak preview of different parts. Kawangware, on these sides of Gitanga Road, this sides of Naivasha Road. As always, these are the crucial or chronicle places where you need to be alert on. And I look around on these other ones, and clearly there's not much to worry about on matters traffic. Also, I'll be taking you to the coast. We see what the roads are like. That is later on when the activities begin to get a little bit more. Lusaka Road, as you can see from a glimpse, is not badly off. This sides of Bakongeni, you take this sides of where, of course, the Southern Bypass is, this side of South B, Hazina Estate, Likoni Road. It's pretty much of an ease this morning. So in the event that we get more details of that, I'll be here to update you on what is happening on the roads. This is Mombasa Road, as you can see, also not so bad. In most cases, you find it very hard when you're taking Mombasa Road all the way to and to the other direction through the city and to the other direction. So not so much in terms of traffic this morning, and I still try to get a hold of what is on the newspaper. The Daily Nation, the front page, masters of double speak, top politicians playing games with Kenyans' lives in the middle of a pandemic. We take a look at that, and even as we speak, or the Daily Nation speaks of the same, paints a picture of the the three key leaders in the country as of now. Who's fooling who is the biggest question, especially at this time when they're talking matters BBI and their political spaces. And not so long ago, President Kenyatta, Deputy President William Ruto, and ODM Chief Odinga swore to champion the cause of health workers. But it seems this depends on their relationship and political interests. Now, poor patients and medics are dying at the trio, or as the trio flip-flop again. That's a story captured on page 4 of the Daily Nation. We'll be having two lawyers who will help us ponder on the newspapers, and they'll tell us their take on that, even as we continue asking these candid questions. And Kusi Ideas Festival, why Africa should not be left behind on COVID-19 vaccine race, a story captured on page 7. That one is being held at Kisumu, and we had Professor Nyang' Nyong'o yesterday. He expounded hugely on what the Kusi Festival is going to be about. And where was he? Thika traders kidnapping tale and 75-day ordeal in captivity, still a mystery. A story captured on page 3. I think we've been following up on this every other time, the follow-up on the same. And I mean, just paints a picture of what happens in most cases, especially with the prominent business people. Sometimes they disappear. The biggest question is just what informs some of these. Some of them are found dead, some of them are found alive, and lots of the issues culminate in regards to that, of course, in entanglement of business affairs. Now, new twist in Sonko impeachment trial. In a usual move, Senate Majority Leader Samuel Pogisio failed to table a motion that would have culminated to or in the information of a committee that would have investigated the governor. So that means he's going to go the preliminary way, and the entire house will be listening to his proceedings, and we get to see what will come out of that. That is a story captured on page 11. We look at the details and we tell you when this will happen. That is after that time when we'll be taking a look at the dailies. Uhuru and Abiy pledged to boost bilateral trade. They've been taking a tour across different parts of the countries, commissioning different projects. So Kenya and Ethiopia leaders opened Moyale one-stop border post before flying to Lamu to inspect cog of the LAPSSET, or the coming in of the LAPSSET project. That is something that we'll be following up later on as we proceed. Door shut on Ruto Raila BBI changes, and there you go. The Secretariat of the BBI yesterday declared that there'll be no more changes, even as we look at what it is that they are going to take as a move next. That we'll be telling you on the day's diary. And there you go. Shame of counties that are yet to provide enhanced medical cover for health staff is a story that is there, and we'll be looking at as we proceed. And that is something that we'll be looking at, and most of these papers that have been captured right here, so much so happening in the world of newspapers. But let's take a look at the day's diary and commemoration of Human Rights Day. And that is one thing that will be happening today, and we'll be following that with our team, that is the editorial team, to give you details of the same. BBI Secretariat to meet with the IEBC and present the signatures. An opening of free-to-call confidential crime reporting hotline by UK Minister for Africa James Dadridge alongside DCI George Kinoti. That is a crucial move towards enhancing security in the country. And also we'll be having the launch of the Liwatoni pedestrian floating bridge by President Uhuru Kenyatta and visiting Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Dr. Ahmed Abiy. Like I said, there's so much details in regards to that. But as we drop the day's daily, as we drop the day's paper also on Matters People Daily, healthcare systems headed for collapse as nurses strike rages. That we'll be looking at later on. 7 million bribery claims rock Sonko oyster motion. What are some of the things that got him or landed him at the point that he's at right now? Governor stroke boundaries war. And here we go. This is the conversation that has been ongoing to counter BBI and recipe for chaos and bridled appetite for extra revenue, agricultural land, state projects, and bloated egos have pushed county chiefs to extend their boundaries, creating tension as experts warn in a matter of time before it explodes. Even as they talk about the role of the IEBC on this, we get to hear what the panelists will be saying in regards to the same. Signatures handover, like I've said, they'll be sealing the conversation on Matters BBI. Let's drop that one for a moment. And first, before I tell you what is trending, we first take a look at what is happening, or what it is that my team has prepared in terms of news. And the nationwide strike of nurses has entered day 4 today, as services continue to be paralyzed in many hospitals. Meanwhile, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission says there exists a collective bargaining agreement between the government and the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union, KMPDU, spelling out allowances to health workers, as Zainab Mohammed tells us.
The Salaries and Remunerations Commission, SRC, says it can't enter into another collective bargaining agreement since there already exists a CBA signed in 2015 and reviewed in 2017. The existence of 2015-2017 CBA provides for doctors' call and risk allowances, a CBA that prevents the salaries body from altering the payment amounts until its expiry. This is as the Kenya National Union of Nurses, KNUN, announces a total of 28 nurses who have contracted COVID-19 since the start of the pandemic. According to the union, some nurses are going to work despite the nationwide nurses' strike that kicked off 3 days ago.
If you are a leader in this union and you sabotage this cause, we will suspend you, we will excommunicate you from the union leadership. You will never go close to this union for the rest of your life. We will not allow nonsense. If you are a union official and you are on the ground and you are being coerced, you are not going on strike. We are telling you, your days are numbered.
The union further says some counties are using blackmail and coercion to force nurses to work, something they will not be party to, as the strike will go on until all their demands are met.
I have directed any directive from any arm of government, and I'm very serious. We have 3 arms of government: the judiciary, the executive, and the legislative. None of these 3 arms of government shall issue any directive for any nurse to go back to work. I want to tell those who are running into courts and obtaining court orders that those court orders are being issued against Occupational Safety and Health Act, Section 14. We will not go back to work where working environment poses highest health risk to our members.
Meanwhile, the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops are pleading with the government to come up with a quick solution towards the health workers' strike, as the strike is crippling many public hospitals while rendering patients helpless.
The legislatures is treated with love, care and protection. Salaries and the accompanying packages for the lawmakers are always handsome. But doctors, the cry of these doctors, nurses, and support staff, some of whom stand on the front line, as is the case with the fight against COVID-19, is hardly listened to. This is the dilemma the government needs to address.
Zainab Mohammed, TV47.
And cancer patients visiting public hospitals for treatment have expressed their agony as nurses' strike entered its 4th day. At the Makueni Cancer Treatment Center, for example, patients were turned away as the health workers continue with the strike. Andrin Kilemi now reports.
Comrades power! Comrades power!
Cancer patients visiting Makueni Referral Hospital were turned away as nurses' strike entered its 3rd day Wednesday. Sami Munyao, who was diagnosed with throat cancer a year ago, explains his pain and suffering due to lack of medical attention.
Na nimestuka sana kuingia kwa hospitalini nikapata madaktari wamelala, na ukiangalia upande wangu wa right utaona shingo bila imefula na vile inakatika yenyewe. Huyo si daktari amekata hiyo shingo. Hiyo shingo ni kuuma, inaniuma usiku na mchana mpaka na basti yenyewe. Na wakati nimestuka mimi ninaraumu serikali yetu ya Kenya. Kwa sababu daktari ana makosa, anaitisha haki yake. Ninaomba serikali ilipe madaktari ili madaktari waweze kuamka tuache kuumia.
At the hospital's waiting bay is Joseph Munyoli, who is also struggling to get medical services due to the strike. His family only hopes that the strike will end soon as their father's health was deteriorating.
Huyu ni baba yangu na anakujanga clinic, lakini hali yake haiendelei mzuri venye tunaona. Kwa hivyo lazima tumletee kitu wakati anaendelea na kungojea huduma, ndio asikue kwa hali mbaya.
Uwezekana mambo ya BBI, mambo ya siasa ingine yote kiserikali iwache, iangalie mambo ya madaktari. Sababu madaktari wakiendelea na hiyo mambo ya mgomo, wagonjwa watakufa wengi sana.
In Uasin Gishu County, the situation is no different as nurses and clinical officers joined in the nationwide strike. Led by Secretary General Uasin Gishu County, the officers want the government to supply them with quality protective gears among other issues.
PBA is inclusive of all the Kenyans. Why should the health workers be left behind? We are demanding we are asking Kenyans to support us like health workers. We should not be left behind.
Kama hakuna pesa hakuna nini? Kazi. Kama hakuna pipisa hakuna nini? Kazi. Hakuna nini? Kazi. Na musikie kama rais anapenda wa Kenya, please act on this. Cover PPs, risk allowance and promotions.
This even as health officers across the country vow to halt all medical processes until their grievances are heard. Andrin Kilemi, TV 47.
Comrades power! Comrades power!
Well, the Ministry of Health has directed KEMSA to release PPEs held in their warehouses by Friday this week. Now, with the release, KEMSA is set to make a huge loss in selling the PPEs in the current market price as directed. Joash Onsari with that report.
The Ministry of Health says the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA, is set to start releasing personal protective equipment in its warehouses. Health CS Mercy Mwangangi told Senate's Health Committee that the equipment will be released to counties starting Friday this week.
At KEMSA, Chair, we deliberated this earlier, and like I mentioned, we are in the process of trying to mobilize approximately 800 million for procurement and distribution of the stocks of the PPEs that are held in KEMSA to enable these facilities to be available to our healthcare workers across the country.
Mwangangi says the delay has been caused by the required procedures. KEMSA has been unable to release PPEs worth 6 billion shillings due to the ongoing investigations. A section of senators were pushing for the release immediately.
We also saw another directive by the government last week. We went to KEMSA, those things are still there. We cannot continue waiting on Friday, until Friday.
Last week, the Senate Health Committee visited KEMSA Embakasi warehouse and claimed that some of the PPEs were near expiry. Joash Onsare, TV 47, Nairobi.
That story by Joash now takes us for a short break. We come back with the newspapers.
Wajuao walisema kwamba jina jema hung'aa hata gizani.
Na vilevile wakasema bora ni bora iliyoboreshwa, na habari za TV47 zinazidi kuimarika kila kuchapo.
Tunasanzuka na kutamba ili kuhakikisha tunaweka bayana taarifa kemkem zenye usawa na mantiki.
Katika mida ya alasiri kabla ya jua kutua kutoka County 001 na kupeperushia shina la upeo.
Na inapowadia saa 1 kamili,
nachukua usukani kukufahamisha
na kukupeperushia taarifa ipasavyo.
Tutakueleza ni kipi kilichojiri na wahusika ni wepi.
Ungana nasi kila siku ya wiki tukujuze, kwani usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
If we had not gone into PPEs right now, we wouldn't be having this opportunity to tell the story of how Equity helped the local sector. There's a lot more that we can do locally. Let's explore and let's see what we can do.
Equity, bega kwa bega.
Wajuao walisema kwamba jina jema hung'aa hata gizani.
Na vilevile wakasema bora ni bora iliyoboreshwa, na habari za TV47 zinazidi kuimarika kila kuchapo.
Tunasanzuka na kutamba ili kuhakikisha tunaweka bayana taarifa kemkem zenye usawa na mantiki.
Katika mida ya alasiri kabla ya jua kutua kutoka County 001 na kupeperushia shina la upeo.
Na inapowadia saa 1 kamili,
nachukua usukani kukufahamisha
na kukupeperushia taarifa ipasavyo.
Tutakueleza ni kipi kilichojiri na wahusika ni wepi.
Ungana nasi kila siku ya wiki tukujuze, kwani usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
If we had not gone into PPEs right now, we wouldn't be having this opportunity to tell the story of how equity helped the local sector. There's a lot more that we can do locally. Let's explore and let's see what we can do.
Equity, bega kwa bega.
Wajuao walisema kwamba jina jema hung'aa hata gizani.
Na vilevile wakasema bora ni bora iliyoboreshwa, na habari za TV47 zinazidi kuimarika kila kuchapo.
Tunasanzuka na kutamba ili kuhakikisha tunaweka bayana taarifa kemkem zenye usawa na mantiki.
Katika mida ya alasiri kabla ya jua kutua, kutoka kaunti 001 na kupeperushia shina la upeo.
Na inapowadia saa 1 kamili,
nachukua usukani kukufahamisha
na kukupeperushia taarifa ipasavyo.
Tutakueleza ni kipi kilichojiri na wahusika ni wepi.
Ungana nasi kila siku ya wiki tukujuze, kwani usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
If we had not gone into PPEs right now, we wouldn't be having this opportunity to tell the story of how equity helped the local sector. There's a lot more that we can do locally. Let's explore and let's see what we can do.
Equity, bega kwa bega.
Wajuao walisema kwamba jina jema hung'aa hata gizani.
Na vilevile wakasema bora ni bora iliyoboreshwa, na habari za TV47 zinazidi kuimarika kila kuchapo.
Tunasanzuka na kutamba ili kuhakikisha tunaweka bayana taarifa kemkem zenye usawa na mantiki.
Katika mida ya alasiri kabla ya jua kutua, kutoka kaunti 001 na kupeperushia shina la upeo.
Na inapowadia saa 1 kamili,
nachukua usukani kukufahamisha
na kukupeperushia taarifa ipasavyo.
Tutakueleza ni kipi kilichojiri na wahusika ni wepi.
Ungana nasi kila siku ya wiki tukujuze, kwani usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
If we had not gone into PPEs right now, we wouldn't be having this opportunity to tell the story of how equity helped the local sector. There's a lot more that we can do locally. Let's explore and let's see what we can do.
Equity, bega kwa bega.
Wajuao walisema kwamba jina jema hung'aa hata gizani.
Na vilevile wakasema bora ni bora iliyoboreshwa, na habari za TV47 zinazidi kuimarika kila kuchapo.
Tunasanzuka na kutamba ili kuhakikisha tunaweka bayana taarifa kemkem zenye usawa na mantiki.
Katika mida ya alasiri kabla ya jua kutua, kutoka kaunti 001 na kupeperushia shina la upeo.
Na inapowadia saa 1 kamili,
nachukua usukani kukufahamisha
na kukupeperushia taarifa ipasavyo.
Tutakueleza ni kipi kilichojiri na wahusika ni wepi.
Ungana nasi kila siku ya wiki tukujuze, kwani usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
If we had not gone into PPEs right now, we wouldn't be having this opportunity to tell the story of how equity helped the local sector. There's a lot more that we can do locally.
All right, welcome back to the broadcast. Time for the newspaper review, and joining me for the same, right next to me, Boniface Nyamu, and we also have Murigi Kamande. They are both lawyers. I'll be helping us to look at what is here. Gentlemen, I hope you're able to see the screen well. 101%?
Sure.
Okay, so here are the stories. We have the People Daily and we have the Daily Nation. It is good to have you this morning. And most of these stories are stories that have been making headlines throughout the week, but of course they're coming with a different twist. Yes, we do not fail to talk about the matters BBI. Everyone else is talking about that because it's crucial that we have that conversation, as many have argued. And here we are. We start off with the People Daily. The People Daily speaks of the biggest story on matters, of course, governance in the country. But before we get to that, first we take a look at the healthcare systems or the healthcare sector that has been bedeviled right now. We have woken up to bad news. We have had a better part of, the entire week talking about terrible moments within the health sector. So healthcare system headed for collapse as nurses strike rages. And this is a story captured in page 14. I believe it's a story that has been captured on all the newspapers on the front pages to speak of just how dire the situation is. So coming to you, gentlemen, and either of you can go first. What do you make of the situation in the country? You are professionals. I mean, we know of the key professionals that we have. Mostly the health sector falls there. The legal docket falls there. And to see fellow professionals going through what it is that they're going through, what does it make you feel?
Go first, you are the senior.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I believe it's unfortunate, the incident that we've seen in the country.
Right.
And not just the nurses' strike. Some days ago, as a country, we lost a doctor.
Yeah.
That's Dr. Mugusu. And if you are to follow the conversation and the whatever we call his dying declaration and everything that he said, you realize that under this pandemic, the doctors are working under very strenuous conditions. And I believe it is, yes, you have the story about Mugusu, a young doctor aged at 29, losing his life while trying to save people from the pandemic.
Yeah.
And a person whom you have information that had not received 5 months salary, none of the allowances, a person who has a family, did not even have a medical cover. It's quite unfortunate, and I believe it's a challenge to not just the national government, also the county government, because what you realize is, and from the tweets by Dr. Mutua, Governor Mutua, you could tell he was blaming the national government for whatever transpired to Dr. Mugusu. So I believe it's not the time for blame games between the national and county governments.
Yeah.
We believe that health is a devolved function. A greater part of it, especially human resources, is a county function. Counties should take up their responsibilities, and they need to treat our health workers well. I believe there is also a positive from all these. Even as the strike continues, we believe there was a story about the release of the PPEs that are held at KEMSA. I believe it's not going to be used as a situation to hide evidence of whatever allegations that were made.
Yes.
But we cannot have our doctors dying while a PPEs lie over, is it 59 billion or whatever it is, lying idle at the KEMSA warehouses. So I believe it's a positive, it is positive news for today. And once those PPEs are released, no doctor in this country or health worker should go without PPE where those PPEs are lying at industrial area.
Indeed, that's pretty much unfortunate a scenario in the country, in as much as they argue that they are going to be sold at a lower price as expected. That is the market price as it now, and of course, rightfully put it, corruption is rife within the health ministry. And indeed, this has been acknowledged even by the CS for Matters Health, that is Mutahi Kagwe. And many have argued that maybe there's so much that needs to be done in this particular sector. Even as we're talking about COVID-19, numerous other patients are going through tough times. You've seen that cancer patient and that story that we captured. It's pretty much unfortunate to listen to just them narrating the kind of pain they're going through and acknowledging that maybe something needs to be done in this particular docket. Mr. Director, can we engage Wakili? Can we engage Wakili? All right, Wakili, what do you make of this? And let's make it a little bit brief because we have so much stories to pick on and time might not be on our side.
Thank you very much, Linda. All I can say is that devolving health was a good decision.
Yeah.
It was intended. But the problem is that I think we devolved health without putting proper mechanisms, because I do not understand how doctors can stay for 5 months without getting paid. I'm even wondering, how do these people survive? Another thing is that if you listen to what doctors are asking for, they are not asking for too much. A doctor or a nurse or a clinical officer asking for PPEs is like a presenter like you asking for a microphone.
Right.
It's unfortunate a doctor has to beg for something like a medical cover or a nurse. You know, especially these times of COVID, I believe the least that doctors should be asking for is a medical cover and PEPs, because remember, when I go to hospital with COVID, there's no way you will know I have COVID until you examine me.
Yeah.
So even that first interaction is still putting that doctor or that nurse or that clinical officer to risk. So I want to believe that their grievances are genuine, and just like the way Muriga has said, if releasing those PPEs from KEMSA warehouses is what is going to save our doctors, our nurses, our clinical officers, and the general public from dying, even if it will be at a loss, let it be so. We will deal with the losses later. We will bring all those who brought us to this mess to book later.
All right.
Yes.
Incredibly. And of course, so to speak, we wait to see what will happen on that. Governor stroke boundaries war and recipe for chaos and bridled appetite for extra revenue, agriculture, land state projects and bloated egos have pushed county chiefs to extend their boundaries, creating tension, and experts warn it's a matter of time before it explodes. A story captured on page 4 and 5. Let's go straight to it. And of course, gentlemen, here we are with this story. Leaders warn of drums of war in devolved units. I mean, all this courtesy of the county boundary disputes that we're likely to witness, and actually some of them that have been in existence. For boundaries dispute will escalate ahead of 2022, they say, but Ministry of Interior is yet to get back to IEBC on resolution mechanisms.
You know, when I read this story, I expected one of the boundaries dispute to arise was one between Nyandarua County and Laikipia. Unfortunately, I didn't see it as one of the hot subjects. But I believe these are matters that can be resolved. If you read this story together with the story about governors who have an appetite for expansionist, you will see that this one, the governors who've been fingered for illegal territory expansion, you will see it is not just about the boundaries. It's about the governors who want to extend their political influence. They believe there are certain areas where they are more popular, and fortunately they fall in other counties, and that is what essentially they want to do. But having seen the presentation that was made to Senate yesterday, I believe the proper way of handling this matter is the involvement of the Ministry of Interior, and that's the reason why IEBC is so clear on this, because some of these boundaries and the ones that were set out were originally in terms of the districts, the colonial districts that we had, and those were the boundaries that existed then. So there are certain administrative units. For example, you have locations. A certain part of a location falls in one county, and another one falls in another one. So the moment you have that synchronized between the Ministry of Interior that demarcates their own administrative units in those locations, sub-counties, counties and all that, and then because essentially it is the IEBC that's supposed to demarcate these boundaries, for purposes of elections and all that. But in terms of administrative units for the national government, the Ministry of Interior should come clean, demarcate those boundaries properly. And I believe that this is not the time for egos, and the boundaries should not be a reason why people should the drums of war we should be beating drums of war at this point.
You see, Linda, let me tell you something. Sometimes when people get to power, power gets into their heads. You see, these governors are suffering from what we call celebrity mentality. When they got to that position, that is what is ailing. For example, if you hear these walls, it is not as a result of service delivery. It is not like Professor Anyang' Nyong'o want to see that person at the border getting the best services. He just want to feel like a governor serving a big region and getting more revenue from that area. Unfortunately, when they are doing all this, the people who are suffering is the common mwananchi. So the only thing I would like to urge these governors, when you are put to public office, when we canvass for political office, we do not do it for our own benefit.
Right.
We are supposed to be trustees. Our duties are supposed to be fiduciary. We are supposed to be serving the local mwananchi. So let us focus all our energies. Like it pains me a lot at a time like now, we are fighting and arguing over boundaries when we should be fighting over who will take medicine to hospitals, who will take PPs. So let IEBC also help us. They have the mandate to review the boundaries, to say this is where Isiolo goes up to, this is where Meru goes up to, and then we will live harmoniously. But I have always advocated there should be a specific law to tame these governors. Whether it is in terms of corruption, abuse of power, they have gone to the extremes now.
Yeah.
They must be checked.
All right, and of course, as we check, we equally wait to see what will happen. This aspect that has raised emotions in regards to just who is supposed to handle these, demarcations and all that. And of course, one of the things that would be looked at as an undoing of the BBI. But that away, judge opts out of Sonko case as Senate date moves to Thursday. And a move by senators to set a select committee to hear this side of the story failed yesterday, and they decided the whole House will go for it. Nairobi. Is it Nairobi or is it Sonko?
There's no problem in Nairobi.
Yeah.
Nairobi as a county has no problem. What we have is a problem of leadership, and it all boils down to only one individual, and that is Mike Mbuvi Sonko. It's one person who's exposed us to drama, to ridicule for the last 2 years. And I believe, from a very honest opinion, I believe that Senate will rise to the occasion and serve Nairobians justice. But looking at the story that is out there, there was intrigue in court, and it was very, I would say, I've read the ruling, and that was done by Nzioka Makau. And the allegations of a bribe of 7 million shillings that led to his recusal.
Right.
And having read that, the judge cunningly recused himself from that matter. But what he did is that he was categorical that the allegations that he received a bribe from Sonko. He dismissed them, and he was categorical. He didn't receive that. And it is also important to note that this is the second judge in this same matter that is recusing himself. Justice Rika did the same last week, and so now you have Nzioka Makau, yes, doing the same. But what I will say is this, the move by the National Assembly, for example, by the Senate yesterday, to drop the idea of an 11-member committee was a very brilliant idea, a last-minute ditch of that idea, which itself means that when you go to Senate and you are dealing with a plenary of 67 and a delegation of 47, for you to influence the same to your advantage will be very, very difficult. So we expect, I believe yesterday I saw Ken Lusaka saying that the dates will be moved from 16 to 17. And so I expect in the plenary hearing, we'll have, Sonko will have his day at the Senate.
Yes.
He has a right to be heard at the Senate. The proposers of the motion will also have their day to be heard, and the senators will make their decision, and I believe wisdom will prevail.
Goose cooked?
Let me start by saying that I might be biased because of what I will say about Sonko, because if I remember very well, I was the first person who petitioned the court for Sonko to be declared unfit for office way back in 2018. However, having said that, I must say any society gets a leader or leaders that they deserve. We, the people of Nairobi, in fact, yesterday we had that conversation in Kasarani, where I come from. I was telling people, as much as we want to blame Sonko because of all these failures that are in this city, remember it's us who elected Sonko. But I also agree with him that it's long overdue. Let the people of Nairobi get justice. But the level that we have gotten, we have now become an embarrassment. And if you ask me, politically speaking, the third most powerful individual in this republic is the governor of Nairobi.
Wow,
yes,
interesting.
That is according to me.
Okay.
Only coming after the president and the deputy president, politically speaking. But if you see the kind of drama that we are always subjected to, it is, it's despicable. But I also want to believe it's a lesson. Next time, we will be very careful, because it's like we moved from the frying pan to the fire itself. But I agree, let's deal with the whole plenary. because it will be very hard to compromise 47 or 67 people. But it's very easy to compromise a committee of 11 or 12 members.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, interesting views right there. We wait to see. And this one, I'll allow one of you to take, and then we'll take a different one with a different person. Now, Lugulu Girls Shutters calls intensify for action on defilement claims. I think you've seen that video?
The ones the students were demonstrating?
Yes, they were demonstrating, and of course accusing their male teachers for defiling them. And
you know, it surprises me that it has to take students to the streets for action to be taken, and for them to courageously hold those banners and get to the streets. It's quite unfortunate, and I believe if at all there is evidence, I would say there is evidence of that defilement that is taking place. It doesn't even get to the media for action to be taken.
Yeah.
Yes, the Ministry of Education, we have the office of the DPP. You have also the police should swing into action, and any of those people that have been alleged to have participated in the defilement action, they should be taken action. Yes.
All right.
So I believe it's a sad story, and if people who are entrusted with protecting our children are the ones who are defiling them, should not be the situation.
Okay. All right, this one, and Nyamu, I'd want you to pick it up. Surveilling NGOs to child trafficking. Committee wants to swift action to prevent a horrific crime and to protect and assist victims. And Kenyan authorities have accused members of some NGO governmental organizations, or that is the non-governmental organization, sorry, of aiding human trafficking and migration of street children in the country. Remember that report that we had just the other day after an expose by a TV station or a media body, and here we are. We know very well that NGOs, and I mean a couple of times, and no bad blood, people have complained that there's been lots and lots of NGOs that culminate in the country, and some have argued that it's instrumental towards transformation and also speaking on behalf of the common mwananchi. But equally, some of them are there, not registered, and equally the activities that they conduct are heinous, or maybe do not really level an interest of what is there for the people. When you see such kind of reports, what do you say?
Let me tell you something. I have, as an advocate, I have registered an NGO. It takes a lot of time to register an NGO. Okay. Why? Because before you are given the go-ahead to get an NGO, they are supposed to do what we call background check with even NIS to know what kind of people these are, what activities they want to deal with. And I can assure you some NGOs are doing a wonderful job. They are helping the society, they are helping the community. But in the same breath, there are NGOs that are formed with very ulterior motives. Yeah. Either people want to make money or they want to advance their legal businesses. So I would call for serious, thorough investigations. You know, when someone jokes with our children, that means they are joking with our future.
Right.
Because the next generation that will take over from where you are seated, where I'm seated, where the president is seated, is these children. Right. So when we expose them to these kind of things, it's very unfortunate. So I agree. There should be thorough investigations. We should come to the bottom of this matter, so that once it is established properly, they are dealt with once and for all. And we know where the rain started beating us.
All right. Yes, time not so much on our side, but this one I am sure we cannot go without touching on. That is on matters BBI. The signatures handover deals blow to consensus. IEBC is expected to receive the 5.2 million signatures to commence the verification process.
What would I say? Even conflicted.
Well, generally, you take on the BBI,
my take is this, that this decision was long overdue. There is nothing like consensus that will ever be achieved at any one point in time. Opening up the document for more amendments every time and then, you'll have an endless cycle of amendments. Everybody has their own opinion on what they want in that document. And I believe the reason why the document has to be subjected to the people is for the people to make a decision whether they approve of the document as is or they will reject it. So I believe that the decision by both Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta to halt any other amendments is welcome. Let the signatures go for verification to the IEBC. Internal verification has already been done at the BBI Secretariat. So the next is by IEBC. Once that is done, let's subject the bill to the people. Let the people decide whether they want the bill as it is or they want in further amendment. And I believe going forward, we'll have room for more amendments. This is not the first and the last time that the Constitution of Kenya is being amended. It's a document that is meant for posterity. And anytime people believe that there are things they need to change, they are at liberty to change, and that's the reason why the Constitution itself gave them that power to change and stipulated how the change is supposed to be done.
This comes with the backdrop of the difficult times in the country, and as the Daily Nation would put it, top politicians playing games with Kenyans' lives in the middle of a pandemic. Masters of doublespeak, who's falling for who, is what they're asking right now. Even as we continue to grapple with the tough times, they cite the poor patients and medics that are dying, and the trio continue to flip-flop again.
Linda, maybe you can help me. I have never understood. What is this urgency of amending the Constitution?
Okay.
We can amend the Constitution this year, we can do it next year, we can do it next year, but when? Looking at the things that are bugging us from behind, I think constitutional amendment issues should not even be top 10. I mean, we have COVID with us, we have doctors strike, we have nurses strike. So I do not understand, and I really struggle, serious struggle. If I was to be asked, right now we are not supposed to be talking about BBI. I mean, we are in an economic meltdown. Many people have lost jobs. So how will I go and convince my people that we need to amend the Constitution? Because we need to create more positions. So to me, and to be honest, I do not believe BBI has anything good. The only thing that is being done, Linda, is that 2 or 3 individuals want to create positions for themselves. But they know they cannot come and tell us, please pass this amendment so that you can increase these 3 or 4 positions. So they have sugar-coated the whole thing with so many flowery language that is not going to help us, but seems like will help us so that we can assist them pass this thing and pave way for their positions.
I wish we had extra time to expound some more on that. Yes.
For me, BBI is not an issue. We are not supposed to be discussing it. It can wait. That is my stand.
Okay, well, I think I'll invite you some other time. We're at 56. Okay, well, you can say something and then that's where we'll be logging it up.
Allow me to comment on this headline about masters of doublespeak. And politics is the art of flip-flopping. So you never have any politician who keeps on who holds one opinion.
So they're just doing what it is that they're tuned to do.
Yes, they're doing what they do best. They are politicians, and depending on the circumstances, they will always say what they believe will appease their followers and will get them more support. So right now you'll have one person whom we see as the most reasonable person, but 3 years down the line or 3 years ago, his opinion about the same situation was completely different. So it is in their nature to flip-flop. I don't see there is anything big.
Well, gentlemen, I'm afraid time is not on our side. Well, that one of Uhuru and Abiy, so much is happening, ongoing in terms of bilateral talks right here in the country. And of course, we wait to see what will come out of it. Importantly, is that a peaceful coexistence between the countries that are held in the East African community and the larger African community and the global community at last. Top searches in COVID in this year matters COVID-19, of course, Shirandula, Shakila, and the people who are in the world of entertainment would understand Shakila and all that. So these are the top trending topics. But then again, time would not allow us to ponder on that. But all the same, we say Asante Sana, and to the gentlemen on board, thank you so much. That is Morigi Kamande on the farthest left, and lastly Boniface Nyamu, all legal experts. It was good having you this morning. We close the newspaper review segment for that moment, and we cross over to a different one altogether after this break.
Wajuao walisema kwamba jina jema hung'aa hata gizani.
Na vilevile wakasema bora ni bora iliyoboreshwa, na habari za TV47 zinazidi kuimarika kila kuchapo.
Tunasanzuka na kutamba ili kuhakikisha tunaweka bayana taarifa kemkem zenye usawa na mantiki.
Katika mida ya alasiri kabla ya jua kutua, kutoka kaunti 001 na kupeperushia shina la upeo.
Na inapowadia saa 1 kamili,
nachukua usukani kukufahamisha
na kukupeperushia taarifa ipasavyo.
Tutakueleza ni kipi kilichojiri na wahusika ni wepi.
Ungana nasi kila siku ya wiki tukujuze, kwani usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
If we had not gone into PPEs right now, we wouldn't be having this opportunity to tell the story of how equity helped the local sector. There's a lot more that we can do locally. Let's explore and let's see what we can do.
Equity, bega kwa bega.
Wajuao walisema kwamba jina jema hung'aa hata gizani.
Na vilevile wakasema bora ni bora iliyoboreshwa, na habari za TV47 zinazidi kuimarika kila kuchapo.
Tunasanzuka na kutamba ili kuhakikisha tunaweka bayana taarifa kemkem zenye usawa na mantiki.
Katika mida ya alasiri kabla ya jua kutua, kutoka kaunti 001 na kupeperushia shina la upeo.
Na inapowadia saa 1 kamili,
nachukua usukani kukufahamisha
na kukupeperushia taarifa ipasavyo.
Tutakueleza ni kipi kilichojiri na wahusika ni wepi.
Ungana nasi kila siku ya wiki tukujuze, kwani usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
If we had not gone into PPEs right now, we wouldn't be having this opportunity to tell the story of how equity helped the local sector. There's a lot more that we can do locally. Let's explore and let's see what we can do.
Equity, bega kwa bega.
Wajuao walisema kwamba jina jema hung'aa hata gizani.
Na vilevile wakasema bora ni bora iliyoboreshwa, na habari za TV47 zinazidi kuimarika kila kuchapo.
Tunasanzuka na kutamba ili kuhakikisha tunaweka bayana taarifa kemkem zenye usawa na mantiki.
Katika mida ya alasiri kabla ya jua kutua, kutoka kaunti 001 na kupeperushia shina la upeo.
Na inapowadia saa 1 kamili,
nachukua usukani kukufahamisha
na kukupeperushia taarifa ipasavyo.
Tutakueleza ni kipi kilichojiri na wahusika ni wepi.
Ungana nasi kila siku ya wiki tukujuze, kwani usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
If we had not gone into PPEs right now, we wouldn't be having this opportunity to tell the story of how equity helped the local sector. There's a lot more that we can do locally. Let's explore and let's see what we can do.
Equity, bega kwa bega.
Wajuao walisema kwamba jina jema hung'aa hata gizani.
Na vilevile wakasema bora ni bora iliyoboreshwa, na habari za TV47 zinazidi kuimarika kila kuchapo.
Tunasanzuka na kutamba ili kuhakikisha tunaweka bayana taarifa kemkem zenye usawa na mantiki.
Katika mida ya alasiri kabla ya jua kutua, kutoka kaunti 001 na kupeperushia shina la upeo.
Na inapowadia saa 1 kamili,
nachukua usukani kukufahamisha
na kukupeperushia taarifa ipasavyo.
Tutakueleza ni kipi kilichojiri na wahusika ni wepi.
Ungana nasi kila siku ya wiki tukujuze, kwani usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
If we had not gone into PPEs right now, we wouldn't be having this opportunity to tell the story of how equity helped the local sector. There's a lot more that we can do locally. Let's explore and let's see what we can do.
Equity, bega kwa bega.
Wajuao walisema kwamba jina jema hung'aa hata gizani.
Na vilevile wakasema bora ni bora iliyoboreshwa, na habari za TV47 zinazidi kuimarika kila kuchapo.
Tunasanzuka na kutamba ili kuhakikisha tunaweka bayana taarifa kemkem zenye usawa na mantiki.
Katika mida ya alasiri kabla ya jua kutua, kutoka kaunti 001 na kupeperushia shina la upeo.
Na inapowadia saa 1 kamili,
nachukua usukani kukufahamisha
na kukupeperushia taarifa ipasavyo.
Tutakueleza ni kipi kilichojiri na wahusika ni wepi.
Ungana nasi kila siku ya wiki tukujuze, kwani usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
If we had not gone into PPEs right now, we wouldn't be having this opportunity to tell the story of how equity helped the local sector. There's a lot more that we can do locally. Let's explore and let's see what we can do.
Equity, bega kwa bega.
Wajuao walisema kwamba jina jema hung'aa hata gizani.
Na vilevile wakasema bora ni bora iliyoboreshwa, na habari za TV47 zinazidi kuimarika kila kuchapo.
Tunasanzuka na kutamba ili kuhakikisha tunaweka bayana taarifa kemkem zenye usawa na mantiki.
Katika mida ya alasiri kabla ya jua kutua, kutoka kaunti 001 na kupeperushia shina la upeo.
Na inapowadia saa 1 kamili,
nachukua usukani kukufahamisha
na kukupeperushia taarifa ipasavyo.
This is TV47. Happy holidays.
All right, welcome back to the broadcast. It is that main segment where we discuss candid issues that are of importance to us. Today, we delve deep into understanding party politics, and main focus will be Ford Kenya Party, even as we look at the larger Mulembe nation. I think this is a conversation we've had before, a conversation that still goes on. And the biggest question then would be, what next for the Mulembe nation, one of the biggest tribes in the country that probably stands a chance of getting at the top of the helm. But of course, the different politics that has played within this particular region is one that has been looked at as an undoing of them getting into the top of the helm. And you hear Mulembe nation, most of the times this is pretty much unfortunate, but you'll talk of, people who are playing second fiddle. You'll talk of people who have been considered to be briefcase carriers, people who've been considered to be bishops, so to speak. And of course, all this mimicry and, paints a picture of what really is happening down there and the leadership that plays out down there and the indifferences that are evident. They call it the elusive Luhya unity. That's what we'll be discussing this morning, and we see what they have done so far in terms of the changes. Why I'm saying what they have done is because we'll be hosting leaders from the Mulembe nation this morning so that they can tell us what it is that they think needs to be done to make changes within this particular region. So at least one, they can get to enjoy unity, and importantly, forge the way forward for the community. Joining me on set, Tongaren Member of Parliament Eseli Simiyu. Once again, Mheshimiwa, thank you for finding time to be with us this morning. Dr. Eseli Simiyu, let's make that clear. And of course, we also have Engineer Butichi Hamisi, who's also a politician.
Thank you.
On numerous occasions, I've been following up on your progress, and I realized that, of course, different places you have tried your hand in matters politics, and you're very instrumental in regards to discussing the Mulembe Nation, peace and unity and all that. And to kickstart the conversation, Engineer, I'll go straight to you and ask you this question. Yes. Do you suppose there is a lacuna in the leadership of Mulembe Nation, or evidently it is there? Why?
Thank you very much, first of all, for giving me the chance to attend to this forum. Secondly, to a question about Mulembe Nation, or lacuna of, that is the vacuum that exists. That is a perception that is portrayed nationally, that there is a vacuum within the Western Kenya or the Mulembe Nation. But as we speak right now, what we know as Mulembe Nation is that we have our leaders, is only that they have taken different directions. And that is allowed under democracy. Under true democracy, people are allowed to express themselves differently. And you know, people being in different parties within that region, it is because of the individual ideology. Which ideology do you follow? You will find in Western Kenya, we have almost all parties that make up the parliament. Because if you check in Western, we have members of parliament from Jubilee, Ford Kenya, ANC, ODM, all these big political parties. It is a democracy that we are endowed with. But at the end of the day, we as a people of Western Kenya need to understand that at the end of the day, we need to have our leaders at the national negotiating table.
Yeah.
And currently, as we speak, I think you've seen for the last few months, heading into this BBI, our two political leaders, top leaders, that is Wetangula and Mudavadi, they've been working tirelessly to make sure that they bring the Mulembe Nation together.
Is it Wetangula or is it Wamunyinyi, Mheshimiwa? Before we come to you.
As far as the National Executive Council is concerned,
okay.
Wamunyinyi is the interim party leader because the National Executive Council deposed Wetangula.
I'm not sure what my good friend Dr. Seli is talking about, because as we speak right now, in terms of party politics and more so in Ford Kenya, Moses Wetangula is still the party leader. The other splinter group, which is led by my friend here, Dr. Seli, they're still in court trying to convince the court to recognize them as the bona fide members of Ford Kenya. And you see, in matters politics,
we are not the ones in court. No.
In matters politics,
let's get this.
Gentlemen, yes, the floor is yours.
You get your time.
We are not the ones in court.
In matters politics, if you want to show people that you're popular or in the party, you use the right channels. And the right channels is that you hold national delegates conference, whereby you express yourself and you are elected officially into those positions.
But you acknowledge the fact that yes, time, like it's long overdue, these elections have not been conducted, and evidently then that means there is a problem.
Most of the parties, not only Ford Kenya, because of the challenges we have with the corona and all these, have not been able to hold these meetings. But if my friend Dr. Seli was genuine, they would have gone maybe to court to compel the court to for the party to hold a delegates national conference where elections will be done, rather than doing a coup. Unfortunately, the coup did not succeed or materialize.
Is this courtesy of corona really, or it's something that has been brewing for quite a while?
I think Engineer Butichi is a recent entrant into Ford Kenya, so he might not have the full history. I don't think corona has been there since 2015. Corona is something of 2020.
Yeah.
This party last had an NDC in 2011. That's 9 years down the line. In fact, we are heading to 10 years. By March next year, it will be 10 years since the last NDC. And if it's a question of having an NDC, I put a notice out for an NDC. They still went to court and stopped that. So even sitting here and saying that NDC is the only one that decides, I agree. And I gave a notice for it.
Right.
Because the truth of the matter is, even I, as Secretary General, I'm in the office illegally. My mandate ended in 2015.
So why should it be a push on Wetangula as opposed to a push on
the National Executive Council deposed him. He went to court, temporarily stopped it.
Yeah.
And while we were at it, we were told that the only way you can do this, if you want the right thing, call an NDC. So we called an NDC for 21st November. They still went to court and stopped that NDC.
Yes.
And the truth of the matter is, right now, the only people who are in office legally are the grassroots leaders, because we had a grassroots election last year up to the level of the county. So all the delegates are there ready to now come and do the national delegates congress and elect national leaders. Because the national leaders, as we are now, were last elected in 2011. You can't run a party that way. You can't.
What stops you from making changes?
So we called for an NDC. They went to court and stopped it.
Do you suppose the courts are interfering in a way that...
Yes, because when you look at Article 169 of the Constitution of Kenya about political parties are told by the Constitution to have regular, fair, internal elections, which Ford Kenya had not had. Initially, it was financial issues to be able to carry this out. But come last year, we devised a method whereby we got a pay bill number. Anybody who wants to contest had to pay something. And in the process, we were able to raise between 600 to 800,000 shillings. And adding on some money from our own contributions, we were able to conduct grassroots elections, which should have culminated in an NDC in June last year.
Right.
In fact, if you look at the minutes of that particular meeting of the National Executive Council and the management, they said that we should have the NDC by June last year. That was long before Corona. But that again did not materialize. And I must say that there have been moves to ensure that this NDC doesn't happen. So eventually, the National Executive Council got fed up and said, no, we must get this NDC done. And if this is the stumbling block, let's remove him and get the NDC done. It did not stop him from participating in NDC if it's done. So what happened now, after he was deposed, he went to court and temporarily stopped.
But with legal backing, Mheshimiwa, and the existence of political parties acts and all that, why is it then that the courts would go contrary to what is expected?
The court, in our view, should not have been involved, because the Political Parties Act is very clear. And in fact, I was saying Article 9, 169, that's Article 91.
Right.
169 talks about subordinate courts. And the subordinate courts are given jurisdiction by an act of parliament. So through an act of parliament, the Political Parties Act was set up. That Political Parties Act states that if you are dissatisfied with the actions of the registrar, or if there's a dispute between members of the party and so on, you go to the Political Parties Tribunal, Disputes Tribunal, for resolution. If you are fed up, if you are not happy with that, now you can appeal to the High Court. So the High Court is actually a court of appeal as far as political parties are concerned. Unfortunately, in this situation, they went straight to the High Court, which was wrong. But the judge said that he has jurisdiction over it because they changed the matter and said it's a human rights thing instead of being a political parties thing. So what happens is, with the Political Parties Act, it's very clear. The tribunal has 3 months to determine all political party matters because they know a political party is a dynamic thing. You can't tie them down like the way the High Court has tied us down now for 7 months. That should not happen.
Then it is happening.
So it is happening.
Yes.
And we feel, in fact, that's one reason why I opted to support the BBI process. Because the BBI process talks about a judiciary ombudsman. Yeah, because I think with this kind of thing, it is wrong. And
do you suppose then it will come into curtail the activities and the independence of the judiciary in that case? I mean, because in support of the same, then it means there's some level of scrutiny and some level of interference that should exist, so at least the judiciary or the courts are able to function.
Yeah, you see what Mheshimiwa is saying is true, that the political parties is a body that emphasizes every day. And the Constitution saw it fit that we have these tribunals. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, what Mheshimiwa should understand is that the courts preside over the processes in which these tribunals work. That any Kenyan who feels aggrieved by the arbitrations within the political parties' tribunals mm-hmm. has a right to ask the court to interfere, so that it gives proper channeling. Because what Mheshimiwa is talking about, the NDC, you see, when you are convening an NDC, it must be an all-out NDC.
Yeah.
And Mheshimiwa says that they've been in office for the last 11 years or so. Mm-hmm. Or Ford Kenya has not held elections for the last 11 years, and so yes. That one also squarely falls on him as a Secretary General, because mm-hmm. that is the true mandate. Because where did he come? That's just the other day mm-hmm. to start and saying that there must be an election.
Yeah.
Where was he all this period? Was he in a comfort zone? Now that he feels now he wants to take over,
right.
Because all these things should have been canvassed at the immediate end of deadline for elections, mm-hmm. but they waited all that long. So squarely also, failures fall on him, not only the party leader,
yeah.
because he's the sole officer within a party who is supposed to organize for elections.
Mm-hmm.
So him coming here to blame maybe the party leader that he has not facilitated, he has not allowed elections is not really true, mm-hmm. because that is his function as SG at that time.
I think I need to answer you.
Yes.
Perhaps you don't have the records of the party properly. If you go through the records of the party properly, you'll find that there was even at a point when I wanted to quit because of that lack of internal elections.
Mm-hmm.
I had said, no, we can't go on, and I'm going to quit.
You should have quit.
No, I said if I quit, this shit will...
If your conscience was clear.
My conscience is very clear.
If it was clear at that time,
no,
you should have quit.
Why did you listen? No,
I did not prolonged
overstay. I did not benefit because one, Ford Kenya is not a rich party.
Right.
So in the process of continuing there, I've actually ended up spending a lot of my resources.
But why is it not a rich party? It's one of the oldest parties.
Yeah, but we have not been able to benefit from the political party's funding.
And why is that?
Because we didn't have the numbers.
Okay.
Now, what happened is, I told my colleagues that we must have elections. And it was a problem. At one point, I said, no, if we don't have these elections, then I'll quit. Mm-hmm. So eventually we agreed that we should have these elections. And that's how we came up with the novel way of the pay bill number for people to pay in to participate in the elections. But that was after a long push, a very hard push. Mm-hmm. In fact, some places I was being told, no, there's no need for elections. We just go and fill the people who have left and we carry on like that.
But do you suppose there's need for an election, Mheshimiwa, in the event
it's been a very hard struggle for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've been avoiding. You know what he's blaming me for? That I, being the Secretary General, should have held the election. I cannot hold the election singly as the Secretary General.
So does it speak of a leadership within
it's a
Ford Kenya that has failed, that is incapable of handling the party business?
And that's what I'm saying. We've been in office illegally since 2015.
Okay.
Now we've pushed. We've had the grassroots elections. The next thing was the NDC. It wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
And the National Executive Council realized that there's a problem. And that's why they deposed Honorable Wetangula, so that we clear the way and go on with the NDC.
Is there an existence of penalties within the Political Parties Acts in regards to people who could be holding office illegally?
Definitely. One thing is, if you are not compliant with your own constitution, then the registrar can virtually deregister you, and that's a possibility. So the issue of Corona now is just an excuse. It is not the reason why Ford Kenya has not had elections. There's been internal resistance to the point whereby positions in the National Executive Council are virtually being hawked. You find somebody has been put in the National Executive Council and nobody really put that person there. The General Council can do that. But you'll be surprised. The General Council has only, since 2011, the General Council has only met once in 2016. And that meeting, I had to actually lobby to get the money to be able to convene that general council.
Okay.
So that we convene the general council, and I don't want to reveal all the sources of where I got the money to be able to host
So then you would agree
But
with the courts that indeed this is an interest of, again, the members, the people who support the Ford Kenya party. So it is within their jurisdiction
we
too.
have actually breached the people's rights.
Yes.
It's not about rights of us, the leaders. It's the rights of the members. Because the constitution in Article 91 is very clear. The members of the party have a right to regularly elect their leadership. This they have been denied. And now we are talking about the rights of us, the leaders. And when we come out and say that no, this must end, then we are vilified, like the way engineer is doing, vilifying me. When he came in recently, he came into the party
and
recently.
coming in recently, engineer, true to it.
He
Well,
needs to look at the.
Right.
He needs to look at
You know,
and
it doesn't
I have-
matter.
I have all the minutes. If you want, I can give you copies of all the minutes.
It doesn't matter who came in, what time.
What time? What's important is to have proper
What is
history.
important is that because even you came in later than some of the members who are in Ford Kenya. So you cannot say that you are the pioneer of the Ford Kenya. There are those who came before you, and they are still there. What is important? Because all these matters, there must be something underlying. Because this issue came up in Ford Kenya.
Right.
At the same time, there was another splinter group also in ANC. And all these are political parties within Western Kenya. All these issues came at the same time. Fortunately, for ANC, I think those who are in the bush realized that they needed to come back home. They went back to ANC and they made peace within ANC, and the ANC is continuing. What we are asking our brother, because you cannot amend an illegality using an illegality. When you purport to host Wetangula and install another party leader through a boardroom meeting, what does it say? It only says that people are power hungry. They just want to occupy the position, because the right thing would have been the way Mheshimiwa Seli wanted elections to be done.
Yeah.
Then they should have conducted a national election
That could cut.
in which now the party leader would have been elected, or the chairman of the party. But now to go in a boardroom and then come up with a list of leaders already discussed in a boardroom, that is an illegality in itself. So you cannot amend an illegality using an illegality. And my question to him, the way I asked him initially, what was he waiting for so long to come and say that now Ford Kenya, there is no democracy, there cannot be elections?
Yeah.
What took him all this time, over 6-7 years, for him to realize now that they need an election? That must not have happened if he was truly the Secretary General of the party.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Interesting. The engineer seems to have a problem with maths. 6-7 years. If I count from 2015 to now,
That's your own mathematics.
it makes,
It is about five,
about 5 years.
Yes. And we're talking about 11.
And I'm telling him that during that time, if he wishes, I can give him all the records of
You
the
raise
party
an alarm.
of when we were pushing for elections all this time. When he states what he's saying, I would like to inform engineer that I actually joined Ford Kenya in 1993. Immediately I left the military. I joined Ford
That is
Kenya.
a year, 2 years after.
2 years after, because
the
it was formed
party.
in 1991, then there was that.
So I joined soon after I left the military. By the time Jaramogi died, I was an activist for the party. And if you look through the history, you'll find that the party has always had NDCs every 4 years. It only stopped after Wetangula took over in 2011.
But that's your failure as a
Right.
General.
No. Listen,
You cannot
listen,
blame it on
listen,
the party.
Listen, you have
This
been
is your
speaking.
function.
You've been speaking. I've not interrupted.
Mheshimiwa, this is
You've been
squarely
speaking.
lies within your functions.
And
As
Allow him to
telling
respond
you-
and then we
now,
come
I'm
to
telling you
the
this.
engineer.
It squarely falls under my docket. And
Yes.
I've told you, I'll give you the minutes. You will go through and see how much I pushed for it.
But you should have gone a step further, what you're doing right now.
Oh, so I
You
should
should not have stopped
so
in the boardroom.
I should have done it earlier.
You should have-
And another thing.
But the question
another thing,
is,
another
why is
thing,
it that
another
nothing
thing.
is happening?
No.
Okay.
Not just in the boardroom, you should have come out to
my friend,
condemn
my friend,
the
my friend.
non-compliance with the law.
My friend, then when you say boardroom, Are you ignoring the fact that these were National Executive Council members? You are calling them a boardroom? Two.
Yes.
Have you read the Ford Kenya Constitution?
Yes, I have.
It's very clear.
Yes.
It states the functions of the National Executive Council.
But were they all of them during this particular process? Remember, there were some that were in support of Wetangula.
But the majority were not.
Majority were not.
And even up to now, the majority are still not. Even now, when Wetangula is trying to call the National Executive Council,
so then
he has never raised quorum.
It's a powerless National Executive Council?
The quorum is against him. So every time he has tried to call the quorum after that, he has never raised the quorum. Because the quorum is against him. The quorum is what told him to keep aside. Now, we did not elect a party leader. We elected an interim party leader to hold the position until an NDC is held.
But there was no vacuum. There was no vacuum as far as we know.
All right, well, ghosts of the past. What could be the problem with Ford Kenya? I mean, ghosts of the past or what? Because historically, following up on the same, and I would pinpoint, and I'm sure you're in a better position to tell us though, such has been the occurrence, coups after coups, differences after indifferences. What really culminates, what really informs all this?
It's an inherent fault in the constitution of the party. There's an inherent fault in it. And that's why to change of leadership in the party has always been acrimonious. You've never had what you would call a smooth change of guard in the party. Always acrimonious every time there's a change of guard. And in this particular situation, this has dragged on for very long. And it looked like it had become a private property now. Such that, with the longevity of the incumbent, it had become a situation where it was him to decide whatever. Even now, you heard what he was announcing in Matungu the other day, that Ford Kenya is not fielding a candidate. You wonder which party organ.
And we'd love for you to tell us whether you'll be fielding a candidate and whether you suppose
there's no party organ that sat and said, we are not fielding a candidate. Those roadside kind of decisions, because it had reached a point where he virtually, I would say, owns the party, which is wrong. This party belongs to the people.
So we have by-elections coming up. We'll have Ford Kenya fielding candidates.
So we should be able to field candidates.
With these wrangles, with these instability?
If we decide that we're not fielding candidates, it must be a party organ that sits down and says, okay, in this particular situation, we are collaborating with the ANC. We'll not field here, ANC will not field here. It's not a one-man show. So that is where the party has reached. And by the way, even Butichi is a beneficiary of that one-man decision.
Which benefit? Which benefit?
Like fielding him in Kibera. Fielding him in Kibera.
Fielding in Kibera. Butichi, allow me to ask this.
Kibera was a one-man decision.
Yes, allow me to ask this now as you come to address that aspect of Kibera. 2017, you were vying in Ikolomani.
Yes, Ikolomani.
Under ANC.
Yes.
Today we're talking of a different scenario, Kibera.
Yes.
What informs these changes and what made you leave ANC or defect from ANC to Ford Kenya?
Yes, I vied in Ikolomani 2017 under ANC.
Yes.
And I would want Mheshimiwa to emulate my example. That sometimes when you're in a party and you feel that maybe the ideals of the party are not favoring you, you always have that liberty to leave the party and either join another party or form another party.
Right.
Mheshimiwa has not been able to leave and form his party. Neither has he joined any other party. And he's a disciplined officer, He's a disciplined officer, which actually, when you've been a disciplined officer, issues of coup and never cross your mind.
Okay.
So when you feel that the house is too small for you and you need some space to breathe, you just walk out. Walk out, form another party. If you follow the history of Ford Kenya, there have been splinter from Ford, then Ford Kenya, Ford Asili. Those who came in, Raila wing, they came in. They was dissatisfied with the space within Ford Kenya. They moved out, formed the NDP, all those. So when you feel that the space is too constricting, then you have that responsibility to move out and either join another party or form another party, not to try and stage a coup within the party. I vied in Ikolomani, just I'm answering, I'm coming to. I vied in Ikolomani 2017, I was ANC. When a position became vacant in Kibera, Kibera is not confined to certain people. Nairobi, the whole of Nairobi,
Yeah.
is not confined to certain people who
Yeah.
should be vying in Nairobi. This is a capital city where all the 43 tribes
Are allowed.
meet.
Yeah.
And this was a vacant position, and I approached Ford Kenya because the NC, they said already they had a candidate for that by-election.
Okay.
So I could not start fighting internally. I had to find an alternative vehicle of which could agree for my candidate. I vied in Kibra, yes, because it's a national constituency, not a constituency selected for a few people. So that's how I moved from ANC to Ford Kenya.
Right.
Only that I used it as a vehicle to vie, and I did not benefit from it because I approached the party. In fact, Sally, we talked before when I was joining Ford Kenya. We talked with you.
No.
I talked with the party leader.
No. You were
Yes.
brought. You are brought by Wetangula.
And
I didn't know you.
And there's no problem. There's no problem in you looking for a candidate, even you as an individual.
Would you want to reconsider your stand or your position as at now, looking at what is happening in Ford?
I'm
Kenya?
not reconsidering.
You will still, you are a life member.
We are not blinking. We are
Okay.
there. And we are actually telling them to bring on the game.
All right.
They should bring on the game. We are ready. And let me tell you.
So this is Team Wetangula telling Team.
Because they want to test,
Obinyinyi to
they
bring
want
on
to
the game?
test the might of maybe the Ford Kenya by exchanging. We right now we have a by-election coming up in Kabuchai.
Yeah.
May the member of parliament rest in peace. But at the end of the day, we'll do an election. We want Dr. Seli with his team. I don't know how they're going to front their candidate. We want to meet there in Kabuchai and see. We want to test.
Are you saying that we'll have two candidates from Ford Kenya?
Of course, they are going to bring candidate through some form of a person whom we don't know.
Hold
but
it right
Ford
there,
Kenya,
engineer,
yes.
because this is a little bit too complicated. So we'll have Ford Kenya fronting in two candidates.
There are no two Ford Kenyans. We only have one Ford Kenya.
Okay.
This one is a splinter group which wants to try and stage a coup within Ford Kenya.
Let's listen into what Malala said, and we come back to you, Mheshimiwa, so you can respond to that.
Now, let me tell you, if you are a party leader, you must be wanting to become a president of the Republic of Kenya. Kama Wamunyinyi unataka kuwa president, mimi nitakuunga mkono ukuwe party leader wa Ford Kenya. Kama unataka kuwa president. Lakini kama unataka kuwa party leader ndio ukuwe MP wa Kandui, sasa hiyo unatusumbua na unatupotezea wakati. You are wasting our time. And we know who can be president, who cannot be president. Sasa bana Weta, sisi umetupigania kama Waluya. Na sisi kama vijana Waluya tumesema tutawanyorosha bana. Mukifanya mchezo sisi tutawanyorosha muingie kwa line. We shall not accept our community tena ianze kuwa auction na kutumiwa vibaya kugawanisha na kupiganisha viongozi wetu. That is why personally mimi nilikuwa nasukumana sana na chama cha ANC na Mheshimiwa Musalia, but nilienda mbele ya kanisa kama kijana mdogo nikaomba msamaha. Nikasema Mheshimiwa Musalia, I will work for you, nitaweka chama yetu pamoja.
Dr. Eseli, as you respond to Engineer Butichi, and also in regards to that, don't you suppose that the seasoned politicians really need a panel beating?
What I think is, as I respond to the two of them,
yes.
When Malala talks like that, has Wetangula ever been a presidential candidate? He has never been.
Yeah.
So what's that Malala is saying? And I don't know why you stopped the clip. You should have continued it. Because he even goes further and says that he's a gun for hire. So we want to know who hired him for him to speak that way. Because remember when they deposed Wetangula as the minority leader in the Senate, Malala was at the forefront of doing that. So he's accepted as a gun for hire. He goes on saying those things, and Wetangula himself has never been a presidential candidate. So what is he talking about? I think that kind of confusion. In fact,
he probably ended by saying that we need to panel beat.
That kind of confusion is what has messed the Luhya community. That kind of double speak, speaking from both corners of the mouth. I think Engineer Butichi should know this. I started fighting to have party elections way back in 2015.
I think we are past that.
No, we are not past that. Why are you interrupting?
No,
you are not going to interrupt me.
And I've actually put
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me talk to you.
But you've
listen.
You've continued that talk.
No,
I think we are past that.
No.
Issues of party.
Okay, just allow him to expound and then he will come and respond.
Why don't you want me to expose
allow
the
him
lies?
to, yes.
Expose it.
Because I told you there are records there, how much I've fought to have the elections done from 2015 through 2016 up to this time. Number two, when you talk about a coup, have you read the Fort Kenya Constitution? There's no provision for a coup. The provision that's there in Fort Kenya is that the National Executive Council can net out certain disciplinary measures on the leaders, and that includes all the leaders from the top to the bottom. There's nobody spared. And that's what Wetangula went through. So when you say that there was a coup, there was no coup. It just followed the party constitution. Number two, when we called for an NDC, if indeed you said you wanted an NDC, we called for an NDC, why did you stop it? Why did you go to court and stop it? Why didn't you just come for the NDC? I think there's a problem here. And Butichi is a beneficiary of it, in the sense that this Wetangula has started treating the party as a personal property, that he can do whatever he wants with it. No, that's not how it is. The party has organs. These organs must decide, must make decisions. If he has something to say, he can give it to the organs, and if the organs support that, then well and good. It is interesting that all along, we did not expose him publicly. But once the National Executive Council decided, now we become the bad people. Yet the National Executive Council had informed him earlier that we need to do
I
ABC.
totally agree with that.
So
I totally agree with the internal processes.
I've not interfered when you are speaking. I've not interfered when you are speaking.
Okay, go on, Mheshimiwa.
I think what we need to do, we must realize that where the rain started beating the Luhya nation was that the leadership in the Luhya nation, none of them have been pro-people. They have been for themselves. And that's where the problem is with the Luhya nation. And in that situation, nobody wants to take the risk to go out there and vie for presidency, except Musalia, who had done it once. We hope he'll do it again. Because obviously, Wetangula is not running for president even this time. Because if you find you'll find Musalia Mudavadi Center.
You're not a spokesperson for Wetangula.
We find Musalia. I'm the spokesperson for the party, and I know he has not made any arrangements to run to vie for presidency.
You're the spokesperson
for the party. So really issues of party leader Wetangula.
But you acknowledge that he's not the leader of the party as of now.
No, as of now.
So then, all right.
Who is the leader? Because you know what Dr. Seli says is very true. That they have had those internal meetings, NDC, whatever. But you see, the way I said, you cannot correct an illegality using an illegality. Because let me just finish.
That was not an illegality.
Because at the time at which they purportedly installed a party leader, Wetangula was still a party leader. He had not been declared. All the processes of litigation and arbitration were not complete. On your first meet, and then you install a party leader. Secondly, him being a beneficiary of non-elections in the party. At that point when they were installing Omunyinyi, he should also have stepped down. And they have interim Secretary General because he has been part of the problem.
All right.
Him being the Secretary General. You cannot shift that blame to the party leader who was there and who is there. That is the one who did not allow National Leaders Conference to happen. He did not allow elections. That mandate squarely falls on, and you should not be complaining. Don't be a crybaby. That it is the party leader, it is Wetangula who tried to stop the elections. No. As a Secretary General, you have powers, and at that time, maybe 2-3 months after the deadline for elections, you should have come out the way you've come out. Not to wait for so many years for you to come out now. So at that time when they were installing Omunyinyi, he should have resigned also. Or he should have stepped aside and say, let's have also an interim secretary, somebody who does not have interest. But him is an interested party in this matter.
Wetangula is equally an interested party now that, in a way, you speak in defense of him.
Yes.
So who should exit the stage first? Because clearly these two parties are not
There is no stage to exit.
Okay.
There is no stage to exit. If he succeeds in the coup, if they succeed in the coup, then we'll find an alternative way to move
Should
forward.
it always be the case, especially when you're looking at this, one of the oldest outfits in the country, an outfit that probably carries so much the interest of the Mulembe nation, sadly, so to speak, and I think I asked Mheshimiwa this some times back, why is it that Ford Kenya has been reduced to a Mulembe party? And then how then does it
Ford Kenya
get to a point?
Ford Kenya is not a Mulembe party.
An individual party, like he says, has been reduced to an individual party?
Ford Kenya is a national party, and across the country we have representation.
Looking at it, do you suppose it really paints a picture of a party that is indeed an national party?
Yeah, it is a national party. A national party means that we have
offices and representation across
the nation.
That does not meet the threshold of actually getting funds from the party.
We have elected. That's why the BBI has come in.
Yeah.
You see this issue of saying that a political party, for it to be national, it should benefit from the funds. Once it has so much elected leaders, that one is now going to be cured by BBI. We'll look at the numbers of votes garnered nationally by that party for it to qualify. Because at times, you see, the way he says, the party has been evolving. And we've reached a stage whereby we want to evolve into even a bigger party nationally.
Is there room for evolvement to being a bigger party in Ford Kenya as it stands today?
Yeah, without Wetangula, yes.
Without Wetangula, yes. So why is this turning out to be more of an individual affair? Battles against individuals and all that, as opposed to proper party ideologies.
Because I think what happened here is Wetangula got a chance to lead Ford Kenya, but he came from a background that is not reform oriented. In the 9 years that he's been there, with the constitution of the party very clear of what he's supposed to do, he has not done that. But right now, if you go through the country, because when we called for the NDC, we actually went through the country, and you will find that all these people, I agree with him, we have structures in almost every constituency of the country. When you go to those places, all of them are saying, good, now we have a change, we can actually move forward. They are waiting. The stumbling block has been Wetangula, because his mindset is not, I would say he didn't take time to really understand the ideology of Ford Kenya, such that he's been unable to meet the expectations of the grassroots support of Ford Kenya. So for him to send people like Engineer Butichi here to defend him, it's interesting because
I invited him. I invited him the same way I invited you.
You invited him here to defend him. I understand. Understand where he's coming from.
To register his position.
Understand where he's coming from.
Yes.
I understand where he's coming from. But I would advise him. I would advise Engineer. In fact, I think I always carry copies of the Ford Kenya Constitution. I think when we leave here, I'll give him a copy of the Ford Kenya Constitution.
But Mheshimiwa, what is the point of a constitution that cannot be upheld?
That you are not following.
Yes.
The one that you also violate.
So
tell us
within
the constitution
what he's saying,
where it allows.
You know what is? I told you it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
Then why?
And in fact, it's very clear.
Why?
When
you cannot be comfortable for all these years, and then come the last stay in the marriage, and then you start blaming the other partner that he didn't do this, he didn't do that.
That's the problem.
You should have.
That's the problem.
You should have.
That's the problem.
Because it's been all these years. You should have raised the occasion.
Allow him to.
That's the problem you've got. You are so individual. You think individual. You don't think party. Like in this particular situation, you are saying you.
Your office.
Wait a minute.
As an officer.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
Do you know something called a National Executive Council?
Yes.
What are the functions of the National Executive Council? Okay?
Yes.
So for me, whatever actions I took were in direction of the National Executive Council, not my own decisions. This was decisions made by the National Executive Council. That's what you need to get.
National Executive Council.
Yes.
This is where Wangamati sits in the National Executive Council.
Yes, he does.
Isn't it?
Yes.
When was he elected to it?
He was elected to it in 2016 General Council.
Okay.
That's why I'm telling you. Look at the Constitution. Then get a list of who are the members of the National Executive Council. It's there. When you have that list, you'll be able to know the truth. I think you've been given some half-truths,
No.
which are not helpful. Because like when you ask Wangamati sits where, Wangamati,
the National Executive Council has been there all these years.
If you look,
it did not get into formation last year. It has been there all these years.
Since the formation of what?
Yeah, since the formation. Yeah. Did they ever give you directions when, because you said you've done minutes, you've done letters, you've done memos as matters pertains to elections. Did they ever advise you maybe to take some actions earlier?
Yes.
Did you take those actions?
I had not.
And the quorum.
So it means you actually failed as a person.
No.
As the SG.
No, I didn't.
SG in parties, political parties, is like the chief executive officer of that party. And all the functions, day-to-day running of the party, squarely falls in his office.
Right.
Party leader is a ceremonial position.
And
just a minute.
Good.
Yeah.
Ceremonial.
Is a position.
Ceremonial. Not somebody going to Matungu and saying we are not feeling a candidate here.
Just a
But we
minute.
all agree that you're illegally there.
Just a minute. Party leader has no mandate to carry out functions day-to-day basis, but Secretary General has. All these executive officers within the party report to him. That's what I'm saying. As a Secretary General of that party, for all these years, he has failed the party. If he's only waking up today or yesterday to claim that the party is not democratic, they have not held the elections, who is speaking is part of the problem.
Right. So in this
it should
case,
be
then,
sorted. It should also, when they installed Omunyinyi, he should have stepped down with the entire office.
That's your opinion.
Yeah.
But
So that now we have interim officials who will conduct elections without bias, without favoring anybody. But it's still there. It's still there, and yet he's proposed to oust party leader Wetangula.
Real struggles continue,
Yes.
Mheshimiwa Eseli Simiyu, and we have spoken about them before. I'm sure people who support Ford Kenya, some of them are life members and all that, and the common mwananchi down on ground, like we say, it's a national party, cuts across different parts of the nation, would love to hear then what next for this particular party. and we all acknowledge and know very well that Kenyans have a way of getting attached to a party and become diehards. They vote in lines of party affiliation and all that. So they are diehards of Ford Kenya that are listening to you today and would love to know what next for the party. Are we going to front a candidate come 2022? How do we get sanity? How do we regain the lost glory of Ford Kenya?
I think Ford Kenya is a very resilient party, given the history that it has gone through.
Yes.
And I think what is here is respect for the organs of the party. That is the thing that is key.
Relax.
What has happened here is it reached a point where the organs of the party were no longer respected, or they were no longer meeting. While Butichi would like to blame me as Secretary General, but I've asked him, and every time I take him there, he says, no, we have passed that. I've asked him to come, I give him the minutes, all the way from 2015 onwards. And he'll see what work we try to do, what I try to do, what other NEC members try to do to get us conform within our constitution. Eventually that didn't seem to be working. So what happens? The members then demanded, the NEC members then demanded a special National Executive Council meeting. And that is what I called. Because what happens here is, if you go through the constitution, you realize that a special National Executive Council meeting does not require notice. Okay? And that is what we held.
Okay.
And that's what the members wanted. Yes, I understand. They will be aggrieved. They will be aggrieved because definitely the National Executive Council's decision did not favor them. So they are bound to be aggrieved.
Okay.
And they'll want to pass blame. And say
the proper quorum, the National Executive?
Yes.
Proper quorum to...
Proper quorum.
Okay.
Yeah. They'll want to accuse, point fingers and say, USG, why didn't you do this before? Why are you doing it now? But that's why I've been referring him back to the minutes of the party, which clearly show...
Don't work. Actions work.
Okay.
You can have all these minutes in a drawer, in a shelf.
Yes, but no.
But if you don't take actions on those minutes as SG.
Perhaps the reason why I asked what is the importance of that co-party constitution if really it cannot be upheld and all that.
So what happened now, they reached a point where they said, now we are going to have this special meeting to ensure that we clear up whatever is going on. Because let's face it, you can't run a party for 9 years without any changes, without any elections. Then you keep on appointing people to the National Executive Council without the organs electing them. So it reaches a point where the party becomes dysfunctional. And that's when Buttigieg came in at a time when the party had become dysfunctional. And he doesn't seem to realize that that dysfunctionality was not purely the Secretary General's making. It is actually a making of the whole system that we don't have elections.
All right.
So eventually, by the way, I didn't want to go into this.
Yeah.
But after we did the pay bill number and raised some money, to get other people to contribute towards the election was a very difficult uphill task.
Okay.
And I spent a lot of my own resources to ensure that those grassroots elections did happen. Okay. So it pains me when he talks the way he talks.
Is it the reason that you use the resources? Because everybody in the party uses resources for the party.
Wait, when you are speaking, you tell me not to speak. Okay?
Okay.
But here was a situation where something had to be done. And indeed, we did that. And we actually have grassroots elections sorted out. Now the remaining thing is the NDC.
What is the elephant in that? What is the main problem? You want to say it is Wetangula?
Yes,
it is
because he fears his own delegates.
Okay, well,
he fears his own delegates. Even if he didn't fear his delegates, when we called for the NDC,
he would have.
Why did he refuse to and go to court to stop it?
We leave it for Ford Kenya too.
He said that I did not follow the procedure. Yet there are minutes there saying NDC should be held by June last year. That's a direction to the Secretary General.
Okay, so we leave it for Ford Kenya to put its house in order. Yes. But reality is that this also has some ramification on the bigger picture of Mulembe politics moving forward. What way for Mulembe politics, maybe towards the last minutes of the program?
Of course, Mulembe Nation is not an exception. If you go to Rift Valley, you'll still find there are a lot of functions. People in different parties go to Central Kenya the same. But at the end of the day, when we head towards the national elections, the general elections, normally you are allowed to vie with any party. But at the end of the day, we need to focus and present a candidate for the presidential election.
Yeah.
So this is happening very well. We started last year. So far, we have, as far as I know, we have at least 2 party leaders in Western, or 3. That is Mudavadi, Wetangula, and to some extent, Eugene Wamalwa.
And I'd love for Dr. Eseli to tell us whether they're going to be fronting, Eugene
He doesn't
Wamalwa. Actually,
speak for the party.
somebody asked that of late we've seen him with Eugene Wamalwa. Is it a plan to front him as the party leader for Kenya?
I think I was finishing up. I was finishing up.
Allow him to say something, and then we come back to you.
What happened earlier on? He's been talking about the unity of the Mulembe Nation. And I told people that, look, if we talk about the unity of the Mulembe Nation, let's start with the unity of the Bukusu community. Okay. And I actually brokered a truce between Eugene Wamalwa and Wetangula and brought them together. And my quest that time was to have the Bukusu united. Then we look for unity with the other sub-tribes. Okay. Remember, the Luhya community is interesting. It's the same situation we are facing is what you find the Mijikendas in Coast facing. Because of our many sub-tribes. So you find some push and pull here and there. So I said that, look, if the Bukusu are the most populous Luhya sub-tribe, their unity is important for the unity of the rest of the Luhyas. Okay. So I brokered a truce, peace deal between Wetangula and Eugene. I felt it was important.
Right.
So unfortunately, Wetangula walked out of that whatever. So if you still find me working with Eugene, I'm still pursuing that unity of the Bukusu as the larger sub-tribe of the Luhya, which will then help the other Luhyas also come together. Because I always feel that with that kind of unity it will help. But all that said and done, we also have to recognize the strength of the Luhya people, in the sense that what they are accused of is actually their strength. The fact that they have shown extreme democracy, total democracy, is actually their strength. But unfortunately, because the country is so ethnicized, then they lose out.
Okay.
Yet, to me, they are the best example of what democracy is all about.
And as you respond to that,
because there are some places in Nyanza, for example, some places in Central, for example, some places in Rift Valley, if you are not in Jubilee or ODM, you get nowhere. While in Western, you still have a foothold somewhere. So that's a sign of democracy.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to coast, the same thing. So I think it's a strength of the Luyas, which unfortunately is being used.
Has been taken advantage of?
Advantage
you
of.
Agree the likes of Right Honorable Raila Odinga have taken advantage of that?
The Luya on it.
As many would say.
People have taken advantage, not just Raila Odinga.
Yeah.
Even Jaramogi did it. Mm-hmm. And I would say that at one point, the only time when the Luyas have come together is because they end up under a leader who is selfless.
Okay.
A leader who is ready to sacrifice for them.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll find that all those times, the Luyas come together.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 times this has happened. Under Masinde Muliro, they did it. They did it. Under Wamalwa Kijana, they did it. But look at Masinde Muliro and look at Wamalwa Kijana. They were selfless. Currently, that selfless leadership is what's lacking.
All right.
And I'm sorry to say, I'm sorry to say, both Musalia and Wetangula, they have to learn to be selfless.
Okay.
So long as they are still selfish, centered on what they can get, then the community, the people are not stupid.
Mm-hmm.
They read through you.
Okay. They
read through you.
That Wetangula
and
Musalia, when they work together, the key leaders, they can make the nation.
I didn't say they work together. I didn't say they work together. I said they should stop being selfish.
He mentioned the 2.
Okay.
They should stop being selfish. He did not mention Wamunyinyi.
We have a couple of them actually.
Yes.
We are having Oparanya coming up. We are having the likes of
what is
Professor
important,
Kitui.
our leaders must realize, especially our key leaders in Western Kenya, they must realize that apart from being democratic within Western Kenya, we need to focus to one goal, that we need to have our own person being at the top there. You can see what is happening in Mulembe Nation right now. We voted the way we voted in 2017 in different fragments. But at the end of the day, what have we gotten in terms of national appeal?
Almost
zero. We only have 1 CS from that region, the entire region, from Trans Nzoia going down all the way to Kakamega. So they should realize that our strength as a nation, as a Mulembe Nation together, we can achieve a lot. And only that will happen when we front one person. And that one, Wetangula and Mudavadi, they're working on that. I can assure you. They're really working on it to have at least one candidate from Western Kenya.
They have worked together for a while with nothing really.
No, it's work in progress.
Okay.
It's work in progress.
We can only give it the benefit of the doubt
them to bring their party leader
on the board. It will not be a boardroom decision.
Okay. It has to be.
Leadership of Mulembe Nation is not going to be decided in a boardroom.
Okay.
Leadership of Mulembe Nation will come when that person who is selfless and actually is ready to stick out their neck for the Mulembe Nation.
Yes.
When that leader comes, the Mulembe Nation will come.
30 seconds.
Recently, when one of the factions...
I don't like this thing. When you keep on vilifying Wamunyinyi, I want to clear this. No, I must clear this. I must clear this.
You installed him as interim. And you subscribe to his ideology, you subscribe to his party leadership.
I want to clear this, and I want to disabuse
You installed him.
I want to disabuse
you. You are the one who installed him. I was just saying,